We often live under the assumption that life has a solid structure, that everything we see, think, and feel has some fixed essence. We look at a tree and call it a tree. We look at ourselves and call ourselves I. But what if, beneath all these names and forms, there is nothing truly solid? What if everything we hold as real is just a collection of conditions, temporary, interdependent, and ultimately empty? This was the insight of one of the greatest philosophers India has ever produced, Nagarjuna. He lived around the 2nd century and is often called the father of the Madhyamaka school, the middle way. His words were not meant to confuse. They were meant to liberate. Nagarjuna questioned the very foundation of how we think reality works. He said, everything exists not by its own nature, but in dependence upon something else. In other words, nothing has an independent essence. The cup exists because of the clay exists because of the earth exists because of elements, and those elements exist because of conditions. When the conditions change, the thing disappears. We usually call this emptiness, Śūnyatā. But it is not nothingness. Nagarjuna never said the world doesn't exist. He said, it doesn't exist the way we think it does. We believe in a permanent world, in permanent people, permanent problems, and permanent identities. But permanence is an illusion. When you understand emptiness, you don't fall into despair. Instead, you are freed from the grip of attachment and fear. Because if everything is empty, if everything arises and passes by dependent on conditions, then why cling to anything? Why hate? Why desire endlessly? Why suffer for what is only a passing wave? Let's take a simple example. You say you are angry, but where exactly is that anger? Is it in the body, in the mind, in the memory? It arises from many causes: a word spoken, an expectation unmet, a fear unacknowledged. When the conditions fade, the anger too fades. It never had an independent existence. The same applies to the self. We believe there is a solid I that owns all these experiences. But Nagarjuna asks, where is this I? In the body, the mind, the past, the future? The I is just a convention, a name we use to refer to a changing flow of experiences. When you deeply see that there is no independent I, a great silence opens within. That silence is not depression, it is freedom. Because now you no longer have to defend this imaginary self. You no longer have to accumulate, prove, compare, or fear. Nagarjuna's philosophy is also called the middle path because it avoids two extremes: the extreme of eternalism and the extreme of nihilism. Eternalism says there is a fixed soul, an unchanging essence. Nihilism says there is nothing at all, no meaning, no truth. Nagarjuna says both are wrong. The truth is not in the extremes, but in the understanding that everything exists only in relation, not independently. This insight changes the way we live. When you understand dependent origination, that everything arises with causes, you become compassionate. You stop blaming others because you see they too are bound by causes and conditions. You stop taking pride in your achievements because you see that you too are a product of countless conditions: parents, society, language, opportunity, and time. Emptiness leads to humility. Humility leads to wisdom. Wisdom leads to peace. Many people fear the word emptiness. They think it means life has no meaning. But Nagarjuna would say, only when you understand emptiness does life gain its true meaning. Because now you stop projecting your fears and desires onto reality. You see life as it is, fluid, open, dynamic. When you look deeply, you find that even the idea of meaning arises and passes away. There is no permanent meaning of life. There is only living itself, moment to moment, without clinging. That is freedom. Emptiness is not something to think about. It is something to see. When you directly see that everything depends on everything else, that your thoughts depend on your body depends on food depends on the sun depends on the universe, you realize that you are not separate from anything. The ego melts into the totality of existence. In that moment, compassion is born naturally. Because when there is no I and you, helping others is not a duty, it's simply an expression of understanding. Nagarjuna's teaching, if truly understood, can dissolve suffering at its root, because suffering exists only when you believe that something fixed can be lost or gained. But if everything is in motion, if everything is empty of self-nature, what is there to lose? When you see this, life becomes light. You live without clinging, without fear, without the arrogance of self-importance. You act, but you don't get trapped by your actions. You love, but you don't possess. You speak, but you don't argue for ego's sake. You live as a part of the vast web of interdependence in deep awareness. This is the heart of Nagarjuna's message. Not a theory, not a belief, but a direct seeing that liberates. Emptiness is fullness. When you see that nothing stands on its own, you see that everything is part of everything. You are not a separate being walking through the world. You are the world itself, walking as you. That realization is not the end of philosophy, it is the beginning of true freedom.